This is Tyrese Haliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
Pacer Nation, welcome back to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast. The Indiana Pacers 2025 never lost a game streak, does come to an end. The Cleveland Cavaliers get their revenge, beating the Tyrese Haliburton list Pacers 127 to 117. And I know there's going to be a lot of questions about this game. We're going to dive into it. I just want to say, if our guest from our last episode, Bob Schmidt, is listening to this podcast, and he is having a great time listening because he wants to hear us talk about how our team lost. I just want to send a reminder that I would much rather play this Cleveland Cavaliers team in a 7-game series than the Boston Celtics. And that's how I'm going to start this podcast out. Facci, how are you doing, man?
Hey, I've been better. Look, I'm not mad about this loss. All great things must come to an end eventually. The Pacers have been undefeated in 2025. That's no more. But I just want to say, try and beat us when we're healthy, Cleveland. Nah, I just want to slip that in there. Didn't want to make excuses. I think the Cavs were the better team tonight. I think Indiana hung around for a good portion of this game, but second half they didn't get what they needed out of their top players in a night where you didn't have Tyrese Haliburton on the court. It was evident.
No, I think that's a big part of it, and I think that the Pacers just did a really poor job against the Cavaliers' zone defense. They just did not get the looks. I guess they had some looks in the middle of the paint there. They just were not falling. And, I talked with David Cole about this when the Pacers lost to the Bucks on New Year's Eve. When they went to that zone that just really kind of like erased Indiana's offense, I was like, why not put Tyrese in the middle of the zone? It feels like they love to go to Nembhard. Well, tonight, I don't know how you felt, but like it just felt like, McConnell, like his shot's not been the same. I think Tony East did a very good job bringing that up on his podcast yesterday, where he was basically just looking at McConnell's numbers the last month and how much he's dropped off as a shooter, and like the percentages field goal wise have just not been good at all. So, to me, if you're going to play against that zone, I thought the guy that probably looked the most comfortable in the middle of the zone, at least hitting shots, was Jarris Walker. And so, they did play Jarris pretty deep into the fourth quarter, but overall, I just this was a game where it felt like the Cavs kind of had control of the game for the majority of it. And the Pacers were just trying to keep around. I think the Cavs led by 15 points at one time, 17 points. I can't remember what the biggest score was, but Pacers' biggest lead they had was 2 points. So they were hanging in there, but they never had control of this game. So that was just. It was just tough, and it's tough to do that when they're playing good zone defense, getting a lot of extra offensive rebounds, and Donovan Mitchell is being unreal in the first half. I mean, just what an incredible first half performance from him. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about this game, but I felt like the zone defense there in the second half really settled it and kind of took Indiana out of their offensive rhythm.
Yeah, it definitely did. I mean, this was a 1-point game at halftime, but it was 62 to 61. Indiana was definitely, I would say a threat, but they were never like in control by any means. So you mentioned before, Cleveland's biggest lead in this game was 15. Indiana just kept finding ways to claw back, but never really be able to take the lead for good. When you talk about Cleveland's first start, the hot start to the game, they led 37 to 30 in the first quarter, but it was Donovan Mitchell with 19 points
Yeah.
in the first quarter that really, honestly, set the tone for Cleveland. He had 19 points all of last game against the Pacers. So Mitchell goes off for 35, but I think that Indiana did a better job slowing him down outside of the first quarter. Just 8 points in the second half. So I think they did a good job on that, but it was Indiana's top players that really disappeared in that second half. Pascal Siakam was absolutely cooking in the first half. 21 points, 9 of 11 shooting. Loved everything I saw. I thought that was going to be something that was going to really carry him throughout the game. Just 2 points on 1 of 5 shooting in the second half for Pascal Siakam. We've talked about this numerous times of disappearing a little bit in the second half. Without Tyrese Haliburton there, I think 5 shots was not enough for Siakam in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, you go from getting 11 shots in the first half to just 5 in the second. I mean, come on. You got to give the Cavs some credit for making some defensive adjustments, but come on.
It's not enough.
And some of those looks were tough. So it's like get Pascal in the middle of that zone. Let him do some things there. I mean, I talked about Jarris doing some things, but let Pascal do some things in the middle of that zone. I don't know. To me, it was just like Siakam is playing so well. It's like they're going to make adjustments. I thought Nembhard had a rough shooting night tonight, especially from the free throw line. The Pacers missed 4 free throws in the first half. I can't remember what they finished with. I think them and the Cavs actually were close with the total number of misses compared to makes. But I
Yeah,
don't
it was
really care
five.
what they did. What was that
5 misses each.
from both teams?
Yes.
Yeah, and all that was in the first half. Then I guess for the Pacers because I just was like, ugh. They had some like Nemhard missed three straight. It was just like, what in the world's happening? So, not saying that was the difference in the game, but just saying that that is important. You got free shots at the free throw line in a game where you need to get every basket you can get. But I just thought personally in this game, like the stars didn't show up for the Pacers in the second half, and I know Donovan Mitchell did kind of take a back seat and only had 8 points in the second half. But Darius Garland, 18 points in the second half, and this is a guy that they were concerned about injury wise if he was going to be able to continue playing in this game. And so I just felt like he really had his way in that second half. And I mean, Darius Garland's a very good player. We talked about him being an all-star candidate this year. Like, it's tough. It's tough to ask someone to guard him. And this is where, you're starting to see, like, when you play these level of teams, like even going back to the Thunder game and going back to the Celtics game that well, they lost one by blood. I wouldn't really count that one. But even the Bucks game, like, this is where you miss Aaron Nesmith. This is where you miss that extra incredible on-ball defender that can just kind of like muck the game up and get a little more physical. Like Ben Shepherd, good defender. Ben Mathurin, I think he's playing much better defense. But like if those are your guys trying to stop Garland, like that's just a much more difficult task. And if you have an Aaron Nesmith out there who is right there with Nembhard, being able to kind of switch the Donovan Mitchell Garland matchups, like that just makes a big difference. So we know we've been without Nesmith for a while, so I'm not using that as an excuse, but I'm just telling you, like when you have two dynamic ball handlers like that, that's what makes the Cavs dangerous. And it's kind of like Mitchell's turn, Garland's turn. That's kind of how it looked like, and together they combined for a total of 59 points on very efficient shooting.
Yeah, no, they showed very much that they are all-star caliber players, and I think that Indiana on the other end. I talked about some of the struggles for Siakam, but Andrew Nembhard in the first half had 8 points. He finished the game with just 10. In the second half, he was 1 of 5. So you're talking about Siakam and Nembhard going 2 of 10 in the second half. I just felt like they could not get it going, and Indiana was then trying to rely on. I would say, Turner had some baskets in the second half, but Mathurin, to touch on Mathurin was having himself a good game. He had 19 points, 8 of 12 shooting. I was really impressed with some of his defense. He had a really nice block in this game. He had a good steal. I just felt like he had very active hands. But I think we got to talk about it. One of the talking points in this game, he was called for a terrible technical foul in, I believe it was the first half when hanging on the rim. I felt like it could have been so many times players do that and it's not called. Could I see why they called it? Yeah, I guess, but it just felt like, oh, come on, you don't have to make that call. There was other bad calls in this game. Nembhard, what was it? Jared Allen makes contact with Nemhard's elbow. They're reviewing it for a technical, but I think first they thought it was Miles Turner on there. The fact that Nembhard got the technical, I was like, what are we doing over here? And then obviously later on, that first technical cost Mathurin because he's frustrated. He's arguing with the ref. He had no right to argue with that foul. It was a clear foul, but he's frustrated, and that leads to him getting ejected. So, not the best officiating night, but I also feel that you got to know when to pick and choose your battles, and Mathurin did not choose the right battle.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I will say, and I think there's a lot of people upset about this on Twitter, and I understand the frustration because
I
Ben
get it.
Mathurin called for a technical foul for hanging on the rim. The very first play or the second play of the second half, Evan Mobley hangs on the rim, does not get called for a technical foul. To me, the difference was Mathurin basically did a chin up
Yeah.
when he did it, and that always gets called a technical foul, whether it's high school, whether it's college, whether it's the NBA. It is an absolutely stupid rule. It does not need to be in there for any reason. A lot of times, guys will lift themselves on the rim to make sure there's nobody below them. It is not, to me, oh, look at me showing off, which is what the kind of rule implies. So it is a stupid rule to begin with. I just felt like the officials called the one on Mathurin. I think Zach Zarba actually called that one, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember who called it.
I saw someone mention that, and then I saw everybody. I'm gonna
Everybody
be
was blaming the girl.
yes, exactly. And look, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know many refs' names outside of like big time refs, but yeah, a lot of people are blaming the women official.
Yeah, I mean, Natalie Sago is her name. And I'll just be honest with you. Like, I was, when I was at the game tonight, Carlisle, you know how Carlisle aggressively will call timeout, and he gets really mad at the officials if they don't hear him right away. So he'll just walk out on the court and call it right in front of their face. And it's a little bit aggressive sometimes. And most of the time, officials will walk away. Natalie Sago did not do that tonight. When Rick Carlisle called for a timeout in the first half, right in front of the Pacers bench, and kind of got in her face when he like called it and was very demonstrative about it, she just gave him, a quick, "You're not going to talk to me that way. You're not going to be disrespectful to me." And so, like, Carlisle didn't really push back, but immediately after she kind of let Carlisle know, like, "You're not going to talk to me like that," Zach Zarba came in and kind of like said something to Carlisle. Obviously, I wasn't there to like see what happened, but I'm observing this from where I'm sitting at on media row. So anyway, regardless, like the whole technical foul thing was stupid for hanging on the rim. It's a dumb rule, but it is a rule. It's a textbook rule. And if people want to get mad about the Mobley one, they're entitled to do that. I understand frustration with that, but I don't think it was as demonstrative as Mathurin doing a chin up on the rim, even though I still think it's stupid. The stuff at the end of the fourth quarter there, Mathurin, to me, was still upset about the travel call that Natalie Sago had called on him. He was down low, and Stan Van Gundy said it's a clear travel. I think it's crazy that she made that call from by the Pacers bench compared to Zach Zarba, who was right there underneath the basket. But she called the travel. I actually agree with her on that call. It was a travel. And about 2 or 3 plays later, he tries to stop an Evan Mobley basket at the rim, fouls him in the process. He thinks he gets all ball. She calls him for the foul. He loses his mind. Okay? He loses his mind. It's part of the game. Mathurin was frustrated that the Pacers were losing. He just got called for a call that he didn't agree with on the travel, and I think he was just getting irritated. He was having a great game at this point,
It was.
and he claps. He says something to her and claps, and she gives him
I
a
don't know
tech,
what Yeah,
which would have been his second tech of the game, and he should have been ejected. But he didn't just stop there. After she gave him the first tech, he goes and bumps her with his shoulder up against her body and continues to clap even more, which got him ejected from the game. And Nimhard and them are trying to kind of pull him away, and he's pushing those guys away because he is just in the heat of the moment. Now, you can't have that happen in a game when it's close. I mean, it wasn't that close. I don't think it impacted the end result of the game, but
Wasn't a
it just,
victory.
you hate to lose a guy like that who is playing so well with still 3+ minutes left in the game, I think, around that time, or at least 2.5. So, to me, it was one of those awareness things where Mathurin, like, that's just a young kid out there in the heat of the moment, getting frustrated. And I know there's fans that hated the way she officiated the game. Okay, like I'm not getting into every single call about this game. I'm just talking specifically with what happened. I am not defending her, but I am defending like Mathurin was in the wrong. Mathurin should not have done that. Mathurin rightfully got ejected, and Evan Rooster Barrett messaged me and said, "Can you ask Carlisle how he was able to get more technical fouls once he already got two?" And I wasn't really sure what the rule book says, but I believe Tony East put it out there that you can get multiple techs after you've already been ejected if you're still on the court. So he got 3 techs tonight, and he's going to pay for it.
Yeah, I was honestly confused by the three technical fouls. I was like, oh, maybe maybe I missed something or anything of the sort. But hey, you learn something every day. To be 100% specific, there was 3 minutes and 58 seconds in that game. It was a 9-point game. Could Indiana have done without that? Absolutely. Did it swing the game? No. But it's something that I think is like a learning moment of like you can't lose your frustration like that. I think in this game, Mathurin had some moments where it was hanging on the rim. And he had like another really bad shot where I think he did too much dribbling and shot it up at the end of the shot clock. It was an air ball. There was some signs of like maybe earlier in his career, Mathurin at times, and I think it's like he had done a really good job this season of not being more of what he was 2 years ago. But things happen. Young guy, give him a break. Things are going to be all right. This wasn't a play that cost the Pacers the game. I think in this game, just that Indiana had no answer for some of the stars of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I thought all of their big four looked better this game than last game. Evan Mobley was hitting threes in the corner. He was 3 of 4 from three. He had 22 points, 13 boards in this game. I felt that he was better. Darius Garland, we talked about, he was better. Donovan Mitchell was way better. Jared Allen, just another rock solid player. 16-9 on 5 of 6 shooting. I mean, just they played good. Their starting five delivered, while Indiana was just very inconsistent. A lot of players around 10, 11 points. That's really not going to get it done. And I'm all right with that. Would I have preferred you won on national television? Of course. but sometimes it doesn't work out that way. They split this 2-game stand with Cleveland, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you look at it from this perspective, like the Cavs, in terms of point wise, were a +9 from three over the Pacers and a +9 on the free throw line, which is 18-point differential. Indiana loses a game by 10. I mean,
Yeah.
they were in this game. They were hanging around. Like I said earlier in the podcast, feels like eons ago. But like I said earlier, it was one of these things where it's like the Cavs felt in control the whole time, and the Pacers were just trying to keep afloat. And it was like, okay, can the Pacers do something? Like they got down by 8 at the end of the first quarter. I think they ended up tying the game up relatively quickly in that second quarter. Jarris Walker had some nice plays, and it was like, okay, this team is really starting to kind of bring it to the Cavs bench. And I think the Cavs did a very good job of which they've done all season long, staggering Mobley and Mitchell with the second unit, basically with Niang and Levert and Okoro or whoever else they want to put out there. Like, I know that I know Ty Jerome did not play in this game tonight. He's been very good for them. He was out again with that illness, so he didn't play. But I just think that the way Mitchell was going early on to bring him back in into that first quarter, let him kind of carry it over with that second unit, like that was a very good move by them. And the Pacers, I mean, they can't play Nembhard every second that he's out there if they are trying to figure out how they want to kind of run their point guard rotation with McConnell and Nembhard. So I don't know. It's okay. The Pacers, they've been playing good ball. I mean, 12 of 16 is still good. It's and they played well. It's not like they just got spanked. And this is a tough thing to do because, how often have we seen teams sweep a season series when they play back-to-back games like this? It is not very often. So I will just say this: like, I assume the Pacers would split this series with the Cavs.
I hope.
I was not expecting the Pacers to win this game. I would say they actually probably exceeded my expectations with how well they competed in the game overall. So I wasn't disappointed, but I will say this: like Mitchell and Garland, they prove why they're special. I think Evan Mobley had some really nice buckets there. He went on a nice little stretch where he had some threes, and they really just were able to pull away Max Strus, aka Josh McRoberts wannabe. He he was hitting some big buckets that he didn't hit in the previous game, and so the Pacers had to find scoring elsewhere. Toppin, Walker, McConnell all had double-digit scoring off the bench. Thomas Bryant had 8 off the bench. But like you said, it really came down to the stars of the game. And this is a golden opportunity for Nembhard to kind of showcase what he can do. And, I was a little bit underwhelmed with his offensive production tonight.
Yeah, I was underwhelmed. And, for this game, just to put things in perspective, because you could see a 10-point loss. It was a 5-point game with 6.5 minutes to go. Indiana had, like we said, stayed afloat for a long time. But you're not going to win a game if Siakam and Nembhard combine for 4 points in the second half when you don't have Haliburton. I thought Nembhard, like I mentioned, he had five assists in the first quarter. Finishes with 9. There's nothing to complain about 9 assists, but just you thought, or at least I did, and I'm sure a lot of this fan base, hey, no Haliburton out there. Could we get Eastern Conference Finals Andrew Nembhard? We didn't get him tonight, but that's okay. I do think that he'll have, a big performance maybe next game or the following if Tyrese Haliburton remains out. But one thing that we didn't touch on, I'm sure a lot of people are aware, for Haliburton, is it wasn't the hamstring injury. It was actually reported to be a groin injury. They say that he's actually day-to-day, which to me sounds a lot more promising than if it was a hamstring injury. I think there'd be a lot of fear of what could happen then, or that happened last year. So I do think that Haliburton's going to be all right. Does that mean that he plays next game? That has not been reported yet, but I think that this is not. I don't want to quote the saying that everybody was fearing in the past, but was it not weeks, not months? Remember when that was out there? Ooh, that didn't work out well. So I don't want to say days, not weeks, but I
Weeks,
think
not days.
we're in exactly, whatever it is. We're in a better spot than I think what we thought 48 hours ago.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to get my thought process here because I've been reading some tweets as well. So, what was the last thing you just said? I apologize. I heard you, but I just totally blanked.
It's all right. I was basically just saying we're in a better spot than what we thought. It's not a hamstring injury. It's a groin injury. Day to day. You can always live with that. So hey, things are gonna be all right.
ADHD is kicking in for me right now. I literally was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna bring up this point about Tyrese," and then I read a tweet about Mathurin, and I just lost my train of thought. Thank you for repeating that. I apologize, Pacer Nation. But anyway, yeah. Obviously, wow, what a revealing thing from Carlisle to start out the presser before the game started. Like, I think everybody kind of expected, yeah, he's gonna be out. It's hamstring, whatever. Like, okay, it's actually a left groin. It's a groin strain. And it was one of those things where he's going to be day to day moving forward. Could they give him some extra time to rest? I think would probably be, beneficial. He actually did say, like, one thing that's been great is Halliburton's played every game this year up until this point.
Yep.
He hasn't missed a game. So that is a true statement that is very important because of how bad the hamstring injury has been. And I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Drew Hanlon talked to The Athletic, and basically the injury that Halliburton suffered with Team USA was a hamstring injury that they did not report it. They
Yeah.
just said that it was a leg injury. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. Interesting to hear, and it's like, man, to have that injury when he wasn't playing heavy minutes is just like it was a good experience, but kind of at what cost?
Well, that's probably why he didn't play as much either. I mean, do I
Makes
think that they probably would have played him if he would have been healthy? Probably not, just because of how they were kind of doing things schematically. But like, you go back to when he got hurt against Boston, comes back too early, re-injures it against the Trailblazers on the road. Then he has to kind of fight uphill with that, with that injury, the remainder of the season. Plays through the playoffs. Really didn't miss a whole lot of time until he re-injured it again against Boston in Game 2. Misses the rest of the playoffs. Goes plays for Team USA. Plays in a couple of the exhibition games, but doesn't really play when they're playing a lot of like group play stuff. And once again has another hamstring injury. So yeah, that is worrisome, especially when he has that many, knick-knack injuries with it. It's good to hear that it wasn't that. So I think that is like the best news of the day for Pacer fans. And, we'll keep an eye on when Aaron Nesmith returns. It does feel like his return is imminent. We'll see when that happens exactly. Will he play before they go to Paris? Will he play in Paris? Will they wait till he comes home to play? Like, I think all three are possible situations, but I think they want to get him out there as soon as possible and get him running. And I think if they can have some extra practice time during that stretch, it would make sense to maybe get him back before they go to Paris. But regardless, I just think that it's a blessing that Halliburton's injury is not more severe than maybe we thought, because when I saw that it was a hamstring and I saw that he was doubtful again today, doubtful to me meant better than out already,
Yeah.
but I was still not feeling great about it. It just kind of felt like I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm tired of this injury.
I'm right there with you. I mean, look, groin injury is no fun, but I'll take it over the hamstring injury that we've been, fearing in the past.
Yes.
Of a little bit of PTSD from, what we went through last year. But I think that we saw in this team, look, they were able to muster up some magic last time against Cleveland, but you're not just going to beat Cleveland 2 games in a row when they've only lost 5 games all season and you're without, your best player. So tall task, but look, guys, Indiana had won 6 straight games by double figures. We were on top of the world. Losses will happen. There will be more of them. But yeah, I think this is a game that you get kind of knocked back down to reality a little bit. And you go, hey, this is a good team. It's not all the way there. They're going to be better when they get Tyrese Haliburton and Aaron Nesmith back. I'm excited for when that time comes. But, for now, hey, I can live with this one. I just want to be able to, we got that loss out of the way. Couldn't be undefeated forever. You did bring up offline, though. Still undefeated with Tyrese Haliburton in 2025. And
That's
for
right.
that, hey, we do still have a streak going on.
Hey, and they haven't lost a game when Aaron Nesmith's in the lineup.
In 2025, yes, that is
That's
correct.
what I mean. 2025, yeah.
That's absolutely true.
So we got plenty of things that we can use with our magic LeVar Ball, with our LeVar Ball tweet. But regardless, I mean, this game to me, like I told you, I was expecting a loss. So I'm not surprised the Pacers lost this game. I would expect Cleveland's best effort. I thought Cleveland early on, they set the tone on both sides of the court. I mean, I was surprised that the rebounding numbers were as close as they were in this game when I looked at the box score, because my goodness, it felt like in the first half, Indiana could not grab a rebound. And it just felt like every opportunity, the Cavs were getting second chance, third chance looks. And I'm just like, good grief. Like, this is not how you win a basketball game. Like, Indiana was still hanging around, but they were unable to secure the basketball on the first, miss. It would ricochet and somebody else would grab it, or like somebody from the Cavs would beat them to the ball because they were just quicker. It's just like, that to me is like what kind of set this game when I set the tone of this game up. And I felt like Donovan Mitchell was just attacking downhill, attacking downhill, attacking downhill. Like, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but the Cavs ran the exact same play to start the game that they ran in the first game when they got on that 10-0 run with that Jared Allen alley-oop. It was the exact same play. They went back to the playbook, Said, let's pull this one out again. Let's see if they're ready for it. Of course, the Pacers weren't ready for it. Jared Allen gets a wide open alley-oop. And the first score of the basket for Donovan Mitchell was Andrew Nembhard's playing him up real close, full court pressure. Turner is like telling him where the screen is coming from. And as he's ready to kind of navigate this screen from Jared Allen, you know what Donovan Mitchell did? Boom, put on the Jets, didn't let Nembhard get into position, right to the basket for a layup. And I said, oh my God, it's going to be one of those nights. He was aggressive, like hunting his shot early on. I mean, if he was going to do that in the second half, I think he could have. I think that Nembhard is probably thankful that, he started letting Darius Garland cook a little bit more in that second half, because I feel like if Mitchell wanted to do what he'd been doing in the first half, he could have done it. I don't think anybody was taking away how good he was. And so, I just think that Indiana, they were lucky to only lose by 10, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know. And I'm not trying to pat ourselves in the back. Well, we hung around. I think the Cavs took this personally. I think that we woke up the beast in Cleveland when we came in there and stole one on their court, beating them by 15. When you see the same team twice and you get handled by 15 points and you're a good team, you don't want to take them lightly. And I think that they did not take Indiana lightly in this game. 37 points in the first quarter, that's a big scoring total. Indiana been playing really good defense lately. Cleveland comes out of halftime, they dropped 38. I feel like whenever they were able to make those type of adjustments and come ready, they were ready. And like I said, Indiana just held Cleveland to, I think it was 93 points the previous game. Well, Cleveland erupts for 127 in this game. That is a huge scoring difference. So, props to them. They're a good team. They will be good, but also the rebounding battle that you touched on a little bit. Last game, Indiana won the rebounding battle by 6. This time, it was Cleveland winning it by 12. I think from an offensive standpoint, they had 5 more offensive rebounds. It's like Cleveland crashed the glass, like you talked about, shot the 3 ball better. Their starters were just better. They got more production out of every guy on that team that considers themselves an all-star. They rose to the occasion. Indiana was only able to do it for a quarter at a time, for certain individuals. And I think this is one that Indiana will respond with and say, hey, we're a good team. We might not be a great team, but let's get back to the drawing board.
Yeah, and they shouldn't hang their heads because they lost this game. Like, they could have won it, but it's just like, okay, you're still playing really good basketball.
Yeah.
Don't let this, beat you up. You got Detroit on the road on Thursday. Detroit's been playing really good basketball.
Yeah.
You can't overlook them just because their record might not be as, sexy as Cleveland's. But yeah, I think you bring up some great points. It's like the free throw discrepancy to me was not because the Pacers weren't getting foul calls. It was because Cleveland was being the more aggressive team with their shots. And just to kind of go back to the whole Mathurin thing, because I think this is going to be what people are really enticed by. I think if this was a male official, people aren't being as ruthless as they are on social media. I think because it is a female official that called these technical fouls,
I agree.
People are blowing it out of proportion, in my personal opinion.
I think it's easy for that to happen. I've seen people like, she should never ref another game. Did this lady just blow the NBA Finals? She got caught for gambling on the NBA Finals? No.
Is she Tyler Ford? Because he's been pretty awful.
What was that?
I said, is she Tyler Ford? Because he's been pretty awful, number 39.
Yep. Yeah. Look, I think people are probably going to give her a harder time. And to be honest, maybe she feels that she needs to stand up for herself. I think that's how it is at times. Look, there's not many women officials in the NBA. She probably felt, hey, I just want to kind of set the tone. Like, I'm not someone who's going to be intimidated or anything of that sort. And I'm sure there probably was a little bit of that in there. But guys, they're referees. Let's not take it personally. We're not wishing anyone gets fired from the NBA. There's bad calls every single night in just about every single game. There's going to be at least one of them. There was a couple of those tonight.
That is why I brought up the point about how she kind of like snapped back at Carlisle when he gave a timeout in her face. Like, I will say most of the male officials I have seen him do that to, they just walk away. They don't let it bother them, and I think that's what you should do. But I think that for her, because of how he maybe said a snarky comment, she felt like she needed to defend herself. And maybe she needs to relax a little bit and calm those emotions, but who am I to tell someone to calm their emotions? I will say this. I like the fire out of Ben Mathurin. I liked it that he got mad about it, okay? Yeah. There's elements of what I like from Mathurin tonight. I mean, the game, obviously, I thought he was pretty efficient tonight shooting the basketball, hit some big buckets, especially some of those pull-up threes that he hit when the Cavs were starting to kind of make that lead a little bit bigger. I like the fact that he hustled down and tried to block Evan Mobley's shot there.
Me
You
too.
tweeted it out. I tweeted it out as a clear foul.
It was.
I was glad that he got upset about it. Like, I'm glad that he cares that much about winning.
Me
I
too.
just feel like, okay, let's hold him accountable here because Mathurin, like you're doing an awesome job this season. You're really proving to a lot of people how you can fit in with this team. But that kind of stuff, it's just you can't have that. And I would say that about anybody. People want to say like she should be held accountable because she was terrible. And it's like, was she really that bad the entirety of the game? No. The Pacers didn't lose this game because of the officiating. The Pacers lost this game, in my personal opinion, because they got outplayed by Cleveland.
Yeah,
Okay?
simply.
I
They did
mean,
good enough tonight.
they got outplayed by Cleveland. Okay, and Cleveland is a better team. Cleveland is clearly the top team in the Eastern Conference, arguably the top team in the league. They are record wise because they've been doing this all season long. Okay, so it's a frustrating game. I get it. Heat of the moment, Mathurin. You move on from it. We'll see if he gets fined for bumping into her. I'm sure there will be repercussions for his actions later besides getting, fined for the technical fouls as well. So we'll see what the league says about that. I understand there are some soft calls in the league and how they officiate and they don't let certain things happen, which I don't always agree with, like the hanging on the rim thing. I just think that the difference is, you just got to learn how to control your emotions and let's do a better job of not pinpointing this because it's a female official versus a male official. That to me, that's not fair to her to, like you said, basically like put your job on the line because you're terrible. I've rarely seen fans from the Pacers fan base say Tony Brother should be fine. He should never referee again. Scott Foster, he might be the most hated NBA official. You don't really see that from him. It's usually like Lauren Holtkamp and I forget the lady's name tonight that I've said a few times.
I
But
don't know. Yeah.
it's just like I feel like there's like fans have a hard time putting it in perspective of like male versus female, and it's just like quit blaming the female official because you don't like the way she officiated tonight and you think it's personal. I just think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think there's being passionate as a fan base, being like, "Oh, that was a terrible call. What are you doing, ref?" And then there's like, "Hey, let's not like call for this person's job or anything of that sort." But if you're gonna make a mistake, and you're Bennedict Mathurin or anybody, do it in January. Learn from it. Hey, this wasn't a playoff game that cost us, or this wasn't a blown call like against the Knicks. In where game one where there was like the Turner screen where it's called for a foul or some other very iffy calls. It's the regular season. No one's gonna remember this call ever even happened until maybe a year from now or anything when it comes up in conversation. This will be forgotten about. Indiana, like you said, we didn't lose this game off of one bad call. There was numerous bad calls. The team didn't play good enough. Cleveland responded. I think they have a good opportunity now for the Pacers to, have a day off, go to Detroit, play a Detroit team that you're not going to overlook because I think Detroit's been solid. Detroit just beat the Knicks recently. So, you got to come ready for that. And I think that that's a good game for Indiana to want to respond on. And Indiana's been good on the road lately. So I do think that we can get back on track.
And if I'm not mistaken, the last time the Pacers played the Pistons blew them
Didn't
out
go
on their home
well.
court.
Yes, yes, it did. I think Detroit won by like 20.
Oh yeah,
So
they ran the score because it was the NBA Cup game. So
yes, exactly.
they
Yes.
went out of their way to put a statement on that victory. So the Pacers need to have some, fight in them. Remember that moment and take it personal. But I will just to put a bow on the Mathurin thing. Tony East just tweeted. Bennedict Mathurin says he went to referee Natalie Sago and apologized to her after the game. Okay,
Respect.
so
That's
Mathurin
good.
realizes he was in the wrong. Heat of the moment. We can move past it. I'm not going to
Yeah.
keep dwelling on this. I don't think it makes Mathurin less of a player or anything like that. I'm just trying to have a conversation because of what is being said on Twitter. So
It's frustration in the sport of basketball. He's not like, he's not
the
trying to
fans are just being relentless, though.
and that's the fan base for certain teams. That's what it'll be. There's certain fan bases that are 1,000 times worse and more ruthless than the Indiana Pacer fan base. I think we have some good
Like the
fans.
Knicks.
Yeah, like the Knicks. Trust
I
me.
mean, I was getting some stupid emails from Knicks fans during
Oh, I
that series.
remember that. Yeah, I mean that was crazy. I mean,
All right, I'm not
people
even going to
really
reply
thought
to these.
exactly like that was wild the way people were talking. We were playing the Knicks in the playoffs. They were some sore losers when we bounced them. So you know what? Hey, whatever, Knicks fans. Maybe we'll meet again. But for now, hey, let's put this loss in the past. Let's respond against Detroit. I don't even know if I want to see Tyrese Haliburton out there. I think I want to just continue to get him rest. This isn't like such a pivotal game that we need to have right now. So hey, if we can get that groin right and he can come back healthy against whether it's Philly or that extended time against San Antonio, where I've wanted him to be like, let's give him a break. I think the Pacers are going to be more than just fine.
Yeah, they just got to be smart with it. I'm not in any need to. I'm not wanting them to rush it at all either. I think it makes sense to just kind of play it cool and kind of let the doctors and Tyrese figure out what's best for him. But I will say this: we are at the halfway point of the season after tonight's game. Pacers 22-19 on the year, which would put them around 3 games above 500. If you kind of fast forward and double that, they'd put them like 6 games above 500, which would finish with a 44-38 record. I will predict they probably end up with a better record than that
I think
based
45.
on their schedule and how many home games they have. So, we'll see what happens here. But Facci, this has been, I think this has been a pretty good conversation despite a loss. Usually we just like come up here with like, oh, well, this was the worst thing ever. But
Yeah.
I think it was a good conversation for us to have. Obviously, not as peppy and the steppy as we were on Sunday, but it happens. It happens. You're not going to win every game, especially when you're playing the elite teams in the league.
The pep will be super minimal tomorrow, borderline non-existent.
It's hump day, baby.
What I will tell you is that's true, but nothing hits like the pep and the step on a Friday morning. And if we can just beat Detroit, everything's going to be great. So, hey, crumple up this L. It's gone. It's done with. The halfway point in the season. I think that if you said, hey, Indiana's going to be 3 games above 500 in the beginning of the year, at the halfway point, we wouldn't have been impressed. If you said this 2, 3 weeks ago, I'd say, hey, you know what? Hey, given the situation, that's a success. So the best basketball, I think, could very well be in front of us. I'm excited about the second half of this season. I want to see what the boys can do. But for now, hey, Cleveland, it was nice playing you. Good riddance.
See you in April, Cleveland, because that's
Yep.
when we play next. So, with that being said, Facci, if you're hoping that Pascal Siakam can replicate what he did in the first half against the Detroit Pistons for the entirety of the game and build that all-star campaign, hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go, Pacers.